how you going? So, my name's Alex and I'm a photographer based in Melbourne, but this video is actually about a bike ride that I did in Canberra recently. And so on this trip, I not only took my camera, but I also took my bike and decided that I'd go for a ride around the lake and check things out and take a few photos on the way and ultimately actually end up at Parliament House, which I thought was really interesting. And so, yeah, I think for this trip, the weather was absolutely perfect. It was so nice. It was, we're just coming into spring here and yeah, Canberra really put on a show, I reckon. So yeah, really happy to have been able to do this one. And so speaking of cameras though, what I've used in this video is my Panasonic GX7 MkII. Now, you might better know that camera as a GX85 or a GX80. Mine's from a second-hand reseller on eBay from Japan, and so that's what they call it over there, the GX7 MkII. And for the past couple of months that I've had this camera, it's been fantastic. I'd love to be able to show it to you right now, but I've actually dropped it off at a shop to have the internal battery replaced, just because it keeps forgetting the time every time you take the battery out. It's a bit frustrating, but otherwise everything else has been great. So hopefully I can get that back soon and we can talk more about that in another video, but otherwise for now, we'll go see what photos I managed to get on my little ride around the lake and up towards Parliament House. And yeah, we'll see what Canberra's about. But yeah, if you also want to see what the sort of before photos are, I'll pop those up at the very end and you can let me know what you think. And yeah, let's go for a bike ride.
Canberra is pretty well known for being a cycling city. There's heaps of bike paths, there's lots of good infrastructure, and yeah, I've found that is definitely the case whenever I've brought the bike up, which is, you know, to be fair, only 2 times now with this trip. And yeah, anyway, as you can see here, we've got some really nice natural spaces with this great bike path going through it. And stopped over here to grab a quick shot of something else that I've seen around Canberra a fair bit, and that's these hot air balloons. So yeah, snapped this quick shot, tried to get it as in the middle as I possibly could, and yeah, pretty happy with that. And then as I've continued down the path, I noticed that there might be some interesting foreground here for a shot with the hot air balloon with the cows there, and even the Telstra Tower off in the background on Black Mountain over there is a nice little addition to this composition, which yeah, it's not too bad. And so we'll continue down this way through all sorts of different kinds of bike paths, and then as I sort of come around this corner, you'll start to notice for the first time Lake Burley Griffin, which is another major feature of Canberra, which if you ever come down here, I'm sure you'll end up walking along the edges of it at some point. And first sort of sighting of the lake, I thought I'd duck down here and grab a quick shot of some people out on some kayaks, which with the weather the way it was today was absolutely the right idea, I reckon. I was a little bit jealous of them, to be honest, but otherwise happy being on the bike still. And yeah, thought I'd pull out the camera here as well and snap a quick shot of them out there enjoying themselves, which yeah, thought it kind of looked pretty cool. So something else that I noticed on this ride was this white fluffy stuff floating about everywhere, and initially I thought it was pollen, but it actually turns out that after a bit of research, it's actually the way that these silver poplar trees distribute their seeds. And so we'll see a little bit more about that in a sec, but before then I actually noticed something in the reeds by the edge of the lake here, and I wanted to check to see what it was. And yeah, I'm glad that I did, because it turns out it was this little family of ducks, and I thought that was pretty cute, so well worth stopping for a quick shot. And so this is what I meant when I said that there'd be more to see from these silver poplar trees. The area here is just absolutely blanketed by that white fluffy stuff. It almost kind of looked a bit like snow. And I had definitely had to stop and try and get a shot here, because it was definitely one of the most blanketed, in fact the most blanketed spot that I saw on this whole ride.
I think might wait a second for a cyclist to come through, because yeah, with all this sort of snow, here we go.
And before I managed to even finish that sentence, our friend here on his bike absolutely flew through, and I could see him off in the distance coming very quickly, so I had to pull out the camera and snap this shot before he disappeared. And yeah, really happy with the composition of this one, actually, with him sort of down on that lower right, and the path kind of creating some lines that sort of guide your eye towards him. And yeah, it's sort of a nice story of what the day was like, you know, with so many people out getting into nature and enjoying the weather. It was really, really cool. So yeah, nice sort of shot to add to the collection. So while I was in Canberra, there was this flower festival or sort of spring festival happening, and this was just sort of a little display, or one of many actually, across this side of the lake. I didn't actually visit the actual festival, mainly because I thought you had to pay for it, and other people are telling me it's free, and I don't know, I was just happy being out on the bike, so that's what I did. And then yeah, a bit further down, there's this really great shot of Parliament House. I tried to get those people sort of down on the left to give a bit more visual interest to the frame, and yeah, I thought it worked pretty well. And then this is the Australian War Memorial. And so this is, to me, an interesting place, a really special place actually, because my dad and I came to Canberra years ago and actually filmed a little documentary where we talked about a member of our family who fought in Gallipoli, and we managed to sort of pull together and make a little doco where we filmed his name on the wall. And yeah, no, it was special to Dad, and I appreciated being able to get in and be part of that too. You'll probably notice there's a bit of a theme here where so many of the photos that I got on this trip were really down the line, straight kind of compositions, and personally I really like that kind of thing, and I felt like Canberra really was just made for it. There's just so many opportunities for that kind of thing, and this little view down the tunnel here, or otherwise a sort of underpass, was no different. And so I actually waited here for a little while to try and capture an image of a cyclist or someone walking on the other side, but then this guy came up from behind me and sort of started going through the tunnel. I thought, well, here's my chance, and there we go. That's what I managed to get. I think that was sort of very bright frame made by the open part really made that composition nice. So yeah, pretty good. And yeah, coming through the tunnel there, we've found the Nerang Pool, which yeah, it's a really interesting spot where there's, for some reason, a heap of seagulls, which I thought was kind of funny being so far inland. But yeah, I guess you know, they've got their reasons for being there, and it was interesting to stop off and get a shot of them here with this big old water cannon thing in the lake just on the other side there, sort of adding to the composition of it, which I thought was interesting. And yeah, I think this little spot in particular was really nice to ride through, and thought it was an interesting spot. I reckon if you got family that you're wanting to take for a walk around and check things out, then this is a good spot for that. We'll go over this bridge here, which was reasonably busy, but otherwise, taking it easy and ringing the bell to let people know that I'm coming up was fine. We managed to get across without any issues. So yeah, heading down back towards the main sort of path around the lake, I noticed another interesting activity that people were partaking in on the lake or in this great weather. It was some sailboarders, which never done that before. Maybe could be something to try out next time I'm in Canberra. And but before I got a shot of them, I noticed these folks on their boat cruising by, and they also looked like they were having a fantastic day. And this shot here, I reckon, it's a nice way of showing what was going on, and a little wave, and everyone's having a great day. It was really nice to be out. So we're going to keep heading towards Parliament House, and again, in that theme of keeping with very straight down the line shots, I got this and then another one that's a little bit more zoomed in. And just love these frames created by the straight lines, and I really do like that kind of photography. And so this is Parliament House, and it's where all the riffraff from across the country come to meet up and talk politics, which is something we won't do in this video. We're just gonna come have a look and take some photos. And we won't be the only ones, because this is definitely one of the bigger tourist hotspots for visitors to Canberra. And as you can see here, we've got some people taking some photos for themselves. And after he's done, I'll go up to the edge of the reflecting pond here and take a photo of the building myself. And the wind has just completely died down, and I was trying to take a photo of the flag reflecting in the water there, but as you can see, it's almost non-existent, sort of drooping down with this complete lack of wind. But we'll take our photo anyway, and then get ourselves ready to head into the building and check things out. And walking up onto the forecourt here, I was thinking back to the last time I was in this area, and I reckon it had to have been primary school, which I think is a pretty common memory for Australian kids growing up and doing the old school trip down to Canberra or up to Canberra, wherever you've come from. And yeah, it's nice to think back to that, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again with fresh eyes. As we head over to the members hall here, there's this pool sort of down the bottom there, and I'm guessing you need sort of special access to be down there. And yeah, I noticed the light coming through the roof and sort of hitting that corner with the flower pot. I thought, well, that could be a cool shot, and so I snapped this one, and yeah, very happy with that. But then I actually waited a brief moment, and a gentleman walked through, and I thought, well, that makes for some more interest in that already interesting frame, so we'll grab that. And so from here we'll be heading over towards the Senate, but before I enter that room I noticed that there was some activity down in the gardens there, and snapped this quick shot of I guess probably a staffer or something, or maybe a poly, I'm not sure, but they were off doing their job, and then I'm off doing mine, going in and taking a few photos in the Senate. And so yeah, there's no riffraff in today, which meant that it was nice and quiet. I could take a moment and really sort of take the photos that I wanted to. And yeah, that's an interesting room. I love the way that the colors sort of come up with this filter that I've applied to the photos. And if you're actually interested in seeing what the photos kind of look like before that, and I mentioned that at the very start of the video, but at the very end we'll have a before and after, where you can see the shot basically raw out of the camera, and then what I've done to them to do the edit. And so this is the House of Representatives, and again, you know, very noisy, busy place some days, but otherwise today, just myself and a few other people checking things out. And yeah, loving these very down the line sort of shots. And I think the way the colors have come up in these photos is even better than the Senate, I reckon. Very happy with how they've turned out, and I thought they were looking pretty good. So we'll grab this one more shot before I head out, and then we'll go for a walk down towards the exit. But again, before we do that, notice this little shot of the gardens with the light, the trees. I thought it was kind of cool, so we'll snap that before I head over here to the foyer. And so in the foyer we'll get, I think, as 2 more shots. And then we'll actually go to a little surprise location that didn't mention earlier in the video, but I appreciate you watching this far, so we'll give you something a little bit different towards the end here. And then one last quick snap before leaving the building was just from the top of these stairs here. You know, people hanging out and checking things out down the bottom, and then yeah, me making my way out of the building. And yeah, that's been the visit to Parliament House, and now we're actually going to head over to Mount Ainslie, which is a spectacular lookout where you can get a really great view of Parliament House with some, again, straight leading lines sort of towards the main part of the composition. We'll see that in a sec. This is that Mount Ainslie view. So it is very popular, so I tried to be as low impact as I could, and you know, just snapped a quick few shots. But yeah, this afternoon sunlight with the filter that I applied to the photos to edit them was really nice. And so I think yeah, it's a really great way to round out what was a really good day of photography, honestly. And so yeah, if you ever come to Canberra, it's well worth coming to this point during the evening and getting sort of amongst the crowd and checking out this really great view. And so it's actually at this point that the action cam battery died, so I'll show you a quick few shots that I got before I left. And yeah, I think I think Canberra doesn't always get the best rap when it comes to being a tourist destination, but for me, I think it was really good. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I think if you ever do find yourself with a bit of interest in wanting to go out that way and check things out, just do it. I think it's worth it. And yeah, these, like I mentioned before, are the before and after shots. And so you'll notice that, I haven't really done anything as far as like cloning out or anything like that. It's really just as simple as sort of a crop on some and a sort of photo filter that I've applied to give it a sort of filmic look. And I think it's been really effective. I think, happy enough with that just being the way I take photos for the most part. And yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed it too, and I hope that you've enjoyed coming along for the ride, coming along for the journey, and checking out Canberra with me. So yeah, please come again and check out what other videos I've got. And if you've enjoyed this, drop us a like, drop us a comment, let me know what you've thought about the photos, and yeah, have a good one.